exciting. Well, welcome to the Many Minds podcast, made by advanced practitioners for advanced practitioners to encourage collaboration and patient-centered care across all specialties. Collaborative community care with many minds for better outcomes. We are your hosts. I'm Alex Davis, physician assistant. Along with me, I've got Tyler Murray, nurse practitioner. The two of us work together at Summit Brain, Spine, and Orthopedics in Lehi, Utah. The purpose of this podcast, the reason we're doing this, is to really encourage the concept of collaborative care. We have a common phrase in our clinic. Tyler, you've heard this before. It's not new. We say many minds for better outcomes, and that's really what we're trying to do. We want to collaborate with all those around us to create the best outcome we possibly can for the patients around us, and that involves getting to know each other, getting to know everyone else in these different specialties. So we're just trying to have a good time, lighthearted communication, and get to know how we can better serve each other across all specialties in medicine.
That's exactly it. And as a general disclaimer, the podcast represents the opinions of myself, Alex, and our guest on the show. The content from this podcast is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. We're just here to learn from each other and have a good time. With that, welcome to episode number 1. So this is kind of a big deal. We've talked about this for a long time, and it's finally come to fruition. We're going to be diving into kind of a little bit about ourselves and our world in neurosurgery, because that's what we're both in right now. So maybe to start with, I'm going to have you, Alex, kind of take the lead on this and give us your background and kind of how you ended up at Summit.
Yes, I'd love to. I'm excited. This is a career change for me, actually. So I've got a different background. Right out of college, out of school, I was in sports medicine. I was an athletic trainer, and I spent some time in Division I college athletics at Brigham Young University. I was covering their football and baseball teams and a few other responsibilities there. And I was loving life, but life changes, priorities change, things get different. So decided to go a different path, went back to PA school. And through networking and getting to know people, which is really what we're trying to foster again here, is networking, getting to know people. I was able to land in this spot here with neurosurgery with Dr. Edwards, is who we primarily work with, you and I, and have been extremely happy. This has been excellent.
And might I interject? So Alex and I have been great friends. But I would tell you, the first time that I met you was at that dinner that we hosted, and I can't remember exactly if it was at the Riverside Country Club.
Yeah, I think so.
And I remember I brought my wife, and you were there, and I can't remember if your wife was there or not. But I remember you sitting across the room, and you were talking with other people. And then, I just felt this sense of unknown territory. They got this new guy coming into town, what's he going to be like? And it was really interesting.
You were super intimidated, I could tell.
That's exactly what I was getting to. I didn't know how it would all play out, but man, I've been so blessed to have you, man. It's been fun because I think we've connected almost immediately once we started talking. So once that ice was broken, I mean, it's been smooth sailing since. But I go back to that time when you first started, and anyway.
And we were bonded forever. We ran the Rocky Steps in Philadelphia together.
Once we did
that bonds you for life.
It was all over, dude. All over. There's a picture of me with my arms up trying to reproduce the symbol of that. So
and then fun story, got caught in a marathon on the way back too. So it was the whole thing. We had a good time.
We do all kinds of fun
How about you then? Give us a little bit. You've got a different background than me. Very, very different. Training and upbringing, everything is quite a bit different. Tell us, how did you get to this spot?
I'll be honest with you. I did not anticipate getting into medicine. None of my family has medical backgrounds. Out of high school, I joined the military. So I was what you'd say a wayward child, needed some direction, and enlisted in the United States Marine Corps and did that for 4 years. Had no anticipation of doing anything medicine, as I mentioned. I got out. I remember one of the commanding officers asked, what are you going to do when you get out? And I was like, I'm going to be a firefighter. And long story short, I soon realized in Utah, you don't make any money doing it's all volunteer stuff.
It's tough. Yeah, it is.
So I had to figure out a different plan. And fast forward, I started doing my prereqs, and then I was working at FedEx as a box handler, and one of the employees there was getting his nursing degree, and his plans were to become a CRNA, a nurse anesthetist. I went home and Googled that, and I was like, oh my gosh, these guys make oogles of money.
Yeah.
That's what I'm going to do. And so I told my wife, took a long time to convince her, but got into nursing. And then kind of fast forward, I worked for one of the local hospitals here on the neurosurgical unit where I took care of Dr. Edwards' patients. And then I just kind of realized, like, I actually enjoy the face-to-face and the interactions with patients more so than I would being stuck in an OR all the time. So I went and got my family nurse practitioner license. And about 6 months after I graduated, I ended up connecting with a friend that told me about Dr. Edwards starting Summit. And I reached out to him and the nurse practitioner at the time. And, you know, he was graceful enough to let me come aboard and took a chance on me. And I've been mentored by him since, and it's been great. So.
Yeah, and you've got, in our office especially, you've got the one unique perspective that you got to see this whole thing from day one. How, in your perspective, how have you seen this place change and grow, and what do you attribute that to? What?
It's incredible because I had taken care of Dr. Edwards' patients for so long, but I'll tell you, I've never had more than a 2-sentence conversation with the man. And it was always regarding patients.
Yeah.
And so when I started working with him, I got to know him on a different level. And from the very start, his envision of what he saw Summit to be or could be really played out. And he would just talk about his vision all the time of, you know, I think we can build something great. I think we invite the community to participate and collaborate with those, you know, network and get to know people. And I watched it go from our grand rounds. When we first started, it was like 7 people would show up, and a lot of them were the staff, like administrative staff.
Yeah.
And to see what it is now, where we've got a room filled with people and we're having really meaningful discussions in different disciplines, I have been impressed with Dr. Edwards' diligence and discipline, but really, just as I said, his vision. You're just watching it play out, and it's super fun to be a part of. And obviously, we've built a pretty unique system here, which I'm sure we'll get into a little bit more. But yeah, it's been an awesome journey, and I really couldn't imagine myself anywhere else.
Yeah, that's great. I agree. It's been fun to be a part of, and I think that's the reason why we all get along so well, is because we all agree with the mission and the values and the direction where everything is going. And I think this podcast is also very much so a manifestation of that, of wanting to collaborate and get everybody involved and see what we can do to be the best that we can to serve those around us.
Well, and this spawned too, just quickly, like we would go out and do clinic sites. So we would kind of make an effort on a weekly basis or every other week to go out and see our community providers, what other people are doing in their spaces. And I think you probably, you know, had the idea, hey, you know, let's bring that together. Let's go the next step, and let's just have a real genuine conversation about what that looks like and what that entails. Mm-hmm. And so I love that.
That really was the spark of this. Was we had such good conversations, awesome experiences, getting to know these people in their environments, getting to see what they do. And I learned something every single time. Mm-hmm. Every person we talk to, every clinic we've been to, I come away having learned quite a bit from them. And I, in the back of my mind, was thinking, God, I wish everybody could have at least had part in that conversation, or could listen to it, or also gain some information out of it. So it's nice.
Let's throw out an example. So you and I went to a physical therapist who's certified in doing nerve conduction studies.
Yes.
And so it was such a unique experience, because we refer out for these EMG nerve conduction studies all the time, and yet we've never had one.
Yeah,
and
I'd never done it before.
We hear patient feedback all the time. And so it was super interesting to be in that setting, to actually feel the test, you know, of what it feels like to undergo something like that, and then have them kind of break down how they interpret it. So just that little, I mean, how long did we spend there? Maybe an hour?
Maybe an hour, yeah.
But yet we walked away with so much more knowledge than we did when we walked into the place. So, and I just think it gives us a unique perspective when we do, you know, order out imaging and diagnostic.
Practice changing, really, because I understand that, how that test functions, how it runs. I don't know where I was getting those perceptions of what that entailed from before, but now, having lived through it, I know
it's patient really, feedback. Patients
that's
would
probably you're probably right.
Super uncomfortable, and you know, it's a handful of patients that would say that, but it leaves a lasting impression when you're the one ordering the study. It gives you a little second thought anyway. So absolutely.
So I guess, speaking about neurosurgery specifically, now we're talking about trying to collaborate. So tell me, how do you feel that the community around our area, these other medical professionals that are also excellent in what they do, how can they support what we do here in neurosurgery?
Well, I think it's maybe having a sense of vulnerability, because I think too often times we get caught up in what we're always talking about, silo care, right? Mm-hmm. You go to one person, you exhaust all what they can do. But this is a different approach in that everyone has a voice, and yet the voice isn't in a singular one-to-one interaction. It's like a collective soul, if you will. And I just think that there's something to that, when you bring, like for instance, our grand rounds where we're having all these different disciplines come and interact. For me, that's where it comes from. It's like your willingness to get outside of your own atmosphere and come to a place where you're learning from other people and you're gaining knowledge and understanding of other people's workplaces and what they offer. I think that's where it all starts. So you have to have an interest in wanting to learn and wanting to come together as a community.
Yeah, I agree. Completely agree with that.
Let's talk a little bit about our practice and the way it's designed real quick, because I think our listeners may have an interest in knowing kind of what our setup looks like, because it's a little different than the normal, in my opinion.
It is. I think so. And that's a good point, because the advanced practitioner has quite a variable role and responsibility depending on the setting, who the physician is that they're working with in the practice, and whether they're employed in a hospital setting or private practice. It's all very different. And our office is similar, and it's quite unique. Dr. Edwards is an amazing surgeon. He's got that reputation for a reason. And his skill set, the way that he's best able to help people, is in the operating room. And that's what he's trying to do with his time, is get as many cases as he can to serve the community. He's uniquely qualified to do that, which then makes it difficult to see patients in the office, which is where our team typically takes most of that responsibility, is seeing patients in the office. And I think it's fantastic because we have the flexibility to spend time with people. We can do some of the legwork with the diagnostic workup, and we can make sure that everything is in order to present an appropriate case for Dr. Edwards to use his time efficiently and give us good surgical recommendations. So for the most part, we spend a majority of the time in the office setting. We see all of the new patients, which I think is a little bit unique as well. I think a lot of times in surgical practices, and those that are listening can correct me if I'm wrong or if you've got a different experience, but traditionally in a surgical practice, a surgeon is oftentimes seeing the new patients. And in our case, it's backwards. We will see the new patients. We will do the diagnostic workups and present a surgical plan. And then Dr. Edwards, a lot of times, will see these patients on the back end after surgery.
And it takes a lot of trust for a surgeon to allow that to take place. And Dr. Edwards is the perfect personality for this, because he invokes this sense of just, hey, confidence, you got this, let's figure this out together. And I love that aspect where he gives us the torch and says, hey, do the workup, present it to me, and then I'll let you know if I think otherwise.
Yeah, and you've never been wrong before, right?
I've never been wrong. I wanted to make sure we got that on this podcast right from the jump.
That's recorded.
Yes, this has been recorded, right? No. But it's a good feeling when you are right, though. It instills confidence in us as advanced practitioners. And the autonomy that we get in this atmosphere is just something that, like you said, is probably not common in many other places. But we'd love to hear if that is the case elsewhere, because we want to, again, understand what else is out there and what that looks like. So
yeah, absolutely. Another fun thing that we I think everybody can relate to this. This is always a fun topic to get into in medicine, is the fun patient stories. Everybody's got their stories of people you've interacted with, and I'm sure you've got plenty of stories we'd love to hear. But is there something recent for you in our practice, Tyler? Do you feel like you've had an impactful patient experience recently?
I would say that there are a lot of instances that come to mind. From a funny experience standpoint, I'm going to have to take you back to the nursing days, because that's when all the fun really happens. But,
yeah, of course.
Yeah. But just recently we actually had the opportunity to see an elderly patient, which we did a craniotomy for, and I was very impressed with just the whole situation. Dr. Edwards had made the comment about an impression that he had when he got the phone call, because this patient came in, was having some neurological symptoms, and was diagnosed with an intraventricular tumor.
Which is a big deal.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a deep-seated tumor. It came out to be that it was a meningioma, which is a benign, slow-growing tumor, but nonetheless, it was causing symptoms, gait imbalance disturbances, and obviously significant concern for the family. Dr. Edwards got the phone call late in the night and wasn't certain whether or not he would do it. But we ended up doing it on a Sunday, and we had 2 other craniotomies the day prior, so 3 back-to-back-to-back craniotomies. And we ended up seeing the patient. I've seen her now 2 times post-op, and every time she just looks better and better. And it's just this idea of just listening to that impression, having the confidence in your neurosurgeon, but being able to witness something like that and be an assistant in a case like that is just an awesome experience. It's something that it makes you embrace your job and enjoy kind of the fruits of your labor, if you will. Yeah.
Recently I had one that was much more impactful for me probably than I was for the patient or their family, but it leaves an impression on you when you get to interact in these situations. That we got consulted for a patient that had been admitted through the ER, had a seizure, had a fall, and on a CT scan showed a small subdural hematoma. So the intensivist just consulted neurosurgery to have us give an opinion on the imaging and see if this was something to be overly concerned about. They were being admitted for other medical reasons to be kept. But I went to go consult and see this patient, and the history ended up being that it was an alcoholic having some withdrawal symptoms, had some seizure activity, and had younger kids. Really, I think they were like 2 or 3 kids that were 18 to maybe 24 years old. They were the ones as the caretakers, because the patient at that point was really not able to answer or respond for herself. And it just brings it all back to center that these are real people. And the nurse let me know after I'd spoken with the family that, and the kids were handling it very well, that their single mother had difficulties with alcohol, had been arrested for a DUI, which is why she was now having these withdrawal symptoms. And they were having to make the decisions for their own mother, which is difficult. And then the nurse told me that she had a conversation with the kids trying to help them, saying, what can I do? And she's a great nurse. What can I do to help you guys and your family? And the kids just said, just help us help our mom. Man, and it just hits home. It's hard. People have difficult situations.
Yeah.
I fortunately haven't been through that scenario. So you kind of lose sight of that sometimes, but people have real struggles out there, and it really matters what we do. A lot of times in the medical field, it just becomes a job for us. But at the end of the day, they're real people that you're dealing with. They have their real struggles and problems in life. And it really helps keep you grounded, and to know that what we're doing 100%. I think can make a difference.
Because those 2 stories are at both ends of the spectrum. You've got a younger person with kids, and then you've got the elderly that still want to live life and enjoy life and live life to the fullest. So I think that's a very unique perspective that we have, and an opportunity we have to learn from those experiences. And I hope that it continues to ground us, because we never want to become calloused providers. I think that's always the risk, is getting to a point where you're not recognizing those things that are bigger than just the situation at hand. So
and these kind of projects, these kind of things are helpful to remember those stories, to chat with other people and get perspective. I think is always helpful.
Absolutely.
The next thing I wanted to get to is just real life. In our work setting, there's always these nice, heartfelt stories, and the people that we interact with, and all the wins that we get every day. But there's also some difficult things, and there's also some bad things that happen in work. So we kind of say the good, the bad, and the ugly. How would you describe, do you have a topic, or do you have something about our job you would classify as each of those 3 things, maybe the good, the bad, and the ugly?
So I'd say the good is that we have a team. So there's always somebody there that you can lean on. I think our burnout ratios are probably substantially reduced because of that. It's a more of a 4-to-1 ratio rather than a 1-to-1, which makes a huge difference.
And people are amazed when I bring that up too, by the way. If I'm talking to other professionals, other physicians, and other providers, and just letting them know our scenario, we have 4 advanced practitioners that support 1 physician. And it seems a little odd, but it works well.
It works really well. And I'd say maybe leaning more towards, some of the not the bad per se, but, Dr. Edwards being as busy as he is. I think that's one of our biggest challenges. The biggest hurdles is just taking care of the community in a timely manner. So efficiency in the clinic is great, but as you alluded to earlier in the podcast, this this is a situation where now it's just a scheduling issue. We've got 4 advanced practitioners, but 1 surgeon trying to do all of these cases.
Yeah.
And so we don't want to overwhelm our surgeon. We want him working at the max capacity. We want to be working at max capacity, and I think we're there. And so the challenge is how do we respond? What more can we do to make us more efficient? That's one of the biggest hurdles I think we have right now. And then, of course, it's just this idea of we never want to become complacent. We never want to think we're there, like we've got it all figured out. We don't. We have a lot of things that we can clean up and get better at. And I think, from authorization processes, like cleaning those up, and a lot of that falls on the advanced practitioner in our setting. So yeah, those are some of the things that come to my mind. So a little bit more deep dive into the logistics and administrative stuff. But yeah, that would be my thought. What about you? What do you think?
Yeah, I think we've documented pretty well, and I think it's pretty common. People know the good part of what we do is we get to help people. One unique thing about our surgical practice is you can see immediate benefits. It's not often in a surgical setting somebody can wake up from anesthesia and tell you immediately that they feel better than they did before they went to sleep. That's
amazing, yeah.
And that is fun to hear. That's fun to see. People even on their way out to the car saying, I feel way better than when I walked in here. So I think that's a fun part. The bad, my least favorite, and hopefully none of our patients are listening. I'm sure they might be. Messages that's hard.
That's right.
It's because we fill our time is scheduled to see the people in person in the office, but we can't control needs outside of the office. So there are a few days we get a little bit inundated with phone calls outside of the regular office time. And for me, that's the hard part. Not my favorite part of the job. An essential part of the job, though, and that comes from everywhere. We deal with everything on the phone. Yeah. I guess I would rephrase that and say the phone is my least favorite part of the job.
And if Dr. Edwards is listening, we would appreciate a nurse at any point in time to start screening and fielding some of those messages that come in. No, I think it's been good for us, though, because we continue that communication link. We're always available to our patients. We try to be anyway, and we're not perfect, but I think that again, just getting better day by day, but the messages are hard.
Yeah, I've had some great experiences on the phone, though, actually. It's been nice to connect to people because it's a lot more casual setting. Somebody's sitting on their couch at home. You might be in the evening at home yourself, and it's a much more casual, candid conversation, really. If you get to talk to people on the phone, it's a whole different
And yet we've talked about this, that you made a comment a while back that really has resonated with me in the sense that, sometimes we get some challenging questions like, wow, this is pretty complex.
Yeah.
And you just taking the mind like, hey, we just got to jump in and figure things out. And so it requires us to pick up the phone and call and start asking questions.
Yep.
And if we don't know, then, not be shy and say, hey, I'm not sure about this, but let's look into it. Let's get this or that or the other, or get this person involved. And I think that's been a good learning perspective for me, just to jump in it, Gotta figure it out.
Yeah. And then I guess lastly, the ugly part of it is difficult scenarios where you just feel like you don't have a lot to offer. Yeah, you're helpless. You can't help people. I distinctly remember a patient a year or two ago, a married couple, young family in their 30s, had 2 or 3. They had 3. I remember specifically had 3 little kids, and the wife was just awesome. Always upbeat, always outgoing, always positive about things. The husband, unfortunately, had a pretty aggressive glioblastoma and had it surgically resected. We were at his post-op appointment for the 2nd surgical resection, had been through this before and just was not going well. And at that point, they had told me at their post-op appointment that was going to be the last one they were going to schedule, because they just had committed to going to the palliative care from there. And you just know I'm not going to see this person, not because they're off living a happy life, but just they won't have a chance to come back. And
that's tough.
It's tough to take that stuff home sometimes, and you feel bad for these people that they've got really a lifelong challenge ahead.
Yeah, that's definitely it. And on that note, I want to make sure that every patient that has that problem sees Alex, because he's clearly the best one for that.
No, Tyler is renowned. That's, I would say, definitely one of your strengths is connecting with people, for sure. And I'm being completely honest and serious.
I appreciate that.
It has been a great example in our office. The guy is just so good at heartfelt listening and connecting with people.
I'm a good listener.
Everybody loves Tyler in our office. I joke around. It's a half joke, but I tell people, if they've seen Tyler in the office, I'll say, it's great. Tyler's awesome. You might get us confused sometimes. I'm the one that's just a little bit taller and a little bit better looking if you get confused.
I love it too, because I'll get patients that come back and tell me that you said that. I'm like,
Good. I'm glad
really?
it gets passed along. That's funny.
Yes.
Okay, so last topic. Last thing. This is kind of a fun part in medicine. I think everybody's got their thing, and I think every specialty can relate here, is what's trending. There's some trendy new topics in every aspect of medicine, and neurosurgery is no different. What are the things that you hear commonly from patients? What would you say are the trendy topics of the trendy new
Am I
technologies?
a candidate for a disc replacement? That's like the biggest one, right?
Uh-huh.
Like I think, and specifically in the lumbar spine, I think I can't count how many times I've had patients come in their 30s or 40s, some degenerative changes in the spine, and they say, am I a candidate for a disc replacement? And that's a big conversation, whether or not we get through all of that today. But that's one of the things that Dr. Edwards is one of the few in the community that's offering this, to my knowledge anyway, is lumbar disc replacements. And maybe you can talk a little bit about kind of what that entails, or if you had something else, I'm not sure. But
I agree. I think that's a huge one, is the disc replacements for our cases. We get people that will obviously search the ends of the earth to find what's the best solution for their specific problem, which is how I would be in the same situation as well. And it's common, they'll say, well, I saw in Europe, I might go to Germany to get a disc replacement because I know they're not doing them here. Have you heard people say they're not doing them here,
Yep,
right?
Absolutely.
But as you just alluded to, we actually do a fair amount of those.
We do.
It's a trendy topic, and we've usually got pretty good answers for that. Disc replacement in the cervical spine all day, every day. In the lumbar spine, we're getting better and better. We do more and more of them, and I think it's come a long ways. That's certainly one of those topics.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's an interesting topic.
Okay, well, this has been a lot of fun.
Super
I
fun.
think we wrap it up for day one.
I love it.
I'm excited to see what's to come of this. For those that are listening, stay tuned. We have an excellent group of guests and co-hosts, or however you want to call them, colleagues. We've got some excellent people that are going to come join us for upcoming episodes. And kind of a similar conversation. We went through neurosurgery and what our world looks like, and in the future we'll get to cover all of the different specialties and learn about what everybody else is doing and experiencing throughout medicine. So stay tuned. If you want to connect with our office, we'd love to get to know you. I promise you, if you run into Dr. Edwards and you want to get involved, guaranteed the first thing he will say is, why don't you come Tuesday morning, right? Come Tuesday morning. We're at the Mountain Point Hospital in Lehigh at 7 a.m. every Tuesday in the boardroom. We have interdisciplinary, collaborative discussions and case presentations. We'd love to have everybody come out and connect with us in person. If you're not here locally, you can find us on Instagram at Summit Brain, Spine, and Orthopedics, or through our YouTube channel is another great avenue. It's called the Summit Medical Institute. Either way, we would love to get some feedback from you. What do you like? What do you not like? What are your challenges? What kind of things would you share with your colleagues in medicine? And we look forward to hearing from you. Stay tuned for the next week's episode, and we'll see you soon.